Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 4-day weekend and a terrific 31st of March 2025. And it is closing on spring weather. Of course, tomorrow is April Fool's, so nobody buy into any April Fool's jokes because I won't. I won't be talking to anybody tomorrow simply because of April Fool's, because everybody knows I don't like April Fool's jokes. So, hope everyone's had themselves a wonderful day today and a wonderful 4-day weekend, because the last time I was here, I decided to make some changes to the platform, the new theme song, among many other things coming up. And it's going to be more packed shows coming up for my particular stream. Got some new people over here, I see. Just a heads up for what I do. Another reintroduction. I stream on many of these platforms, taking on some of the sports topics from the past to the present. Historical perspectives, some of the current ones today, especially in the fields of the NFL and boxing, where so many of the media and the fans are so into the recency bias. I like to take what I learned from the past and transform it into the present so people understand where I came from and understand my views, especially in the world of boxing, where I have a lot to touch on tonight, but I also have other sports I'm going to get to. And those of you are on the X, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble platforms, I will also be on Apple, Spotify, and the iHeartRadio app if you guys want to listen there also, under the same name, Sirhan on X. Touch on a lot of things here today. Of course, I was away to experience perhaps the coolest thing that always goes on here in Cincinnati. It is, of course, opening day. Always a great experience. And when you see the plethora of red from a bird's eye view of a helicopter, it looks like the equivalent of a blood vessel about to form a blood clot, because there was a lot of red in Cincinnati on Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon, of course, going into the game. But it was a terrific day for Cincinnati. And when they say nobody does opening day like Cincinnati, last year and this year, I got a chance to witness it. And that is no propaganda. It is legitimate. Because I thought when I went last year, it was absolutely nuts. Going Thursday, they found a way to double it. And they found a way to double the crowd, double the excitement, and double the fun. Shout out to everyone in the Reds country. Shout out to everyone associated with Reds country, from the management to the players to the broadcasters to the fans, and of course the manager, Terry Francona. Of course, right now they're just demolishing the Texas Rangers, but I'm not worried about the Texas Rangers. I will be at Great American Ballpark April 11th for the home tilt against Pittsburgh. So too will my podcast when I take this show in stadium and give you the preview of the Pirates and the Reds. And they always have this cool thing on Friday nights over there called the fireworks show after the game. Free fireworks every Friday home game. I will be there. And for my Cincinnati followers, you're more than welcome to give me a salute or whatever you want to do. So that is my homerism of the day. Always look forward to opening day in Cincinnati for the second straight year. It basically lived up to its billing of nobody doing opening day like Cincinnati. It certainly did live up to it, and then some, for the second straight year I went to. It's not propaganda, it's legitimate. Now I'm going to go ahead and touch into the crux of my show a little bit. Usually I don't do much NBA, but given the couple of things that have taken place over the weekend, I guess I have to give a take, because everyone asked me about everything. I try to have a little everything for everybody, because I don't like to be a one sport or one topic person, because then it becomes vague and it becomes dry and it becomes doled out. I don't like talking about one subject for an hour or so, because it becomes too old and too stretched out. So I'm going to touch on some NBA a little bit, because a bit of a stunner took place over the weekend when it was the Memphis Grizzlies who fired their head coach, Taylor Jenkins, out of nowhere. I mean, they're going to the playoffs. They were like 44-28 when he got fired. Of course, they were demolished by the Oklahoma City Thunder before that happened, the day before. Don't know what the cause of it is. Saying there was beef with him and their star player, John Morant. But remember what Jean Morant went through with this off-the-court issues a couple years back, and now just coming back from the season-ending injury last season. And for them to get to the top 4 seed at that point before they decided to give Jenkins the boot is basically understandable, but the timing does raise some questions because you're headed to the playoffs. Maybe you're not going to overtake an Oklahoma City or the Lakers or the Nuggets or any of them, but to fire him as you're headed to the playoffs raises some questions because you haven't done anything since you fired him. And basically the last time you lost to the Lakers, which might have cost you the 4 seed, which in the NBA, that means a first round series with home court advantage. I mean, they have the pieces to do something. Of course, the off the court issues with John Morant not too long ago sort of monkey wrenched it, but he has come back and still John Morant and the team manages to win 44, 45 games and was flirting with the 4 seed. But to fire someone with 9 games left, there's more questions than answers, and I don't know if we're going to get the answers to those. So good luck to the Memphis Grizzlies in a tough Western Conference where you have Oklahoma City, Houston, Denver, the Lakers, the Clippers, who all of a sudden have a resurgent Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. And you still have some of the teams in that play-in bracket like the Suns and the Warriors, just to name a few of them. So odd timing. We'll find out the answer somewhere down the line, but it is certainly an eyebrow raiser. And of course, the real big news is the beef that's still ongoing between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. The 2 biggest clowns and the biggest low IQ morons walking God's green earth right now, those 2 deserve each other because they're just 2 of the bigger clowns, 2 of the low IQ morons you see walking God's green earth, and they deserve each other. They can just go box themselves up in a small box and ship themselves out to another country for all the world cares because the world has just gotten tired of both their acts. And of course, the other day, LeBron James bows down and kisses up to some character called Nick Wright. We know Nick Wright is a character and not a human being. But the way LeBron James reacts to anything anybody says speaks more about who he is and how he carries himself. I mean, there was a time when anybody said anything, nobody would confront a reporter or anything because they let the play on the court or on the field when you talk about the NFL or soccer or baseball do the talking. LeBron James seemed like he doesn't want to let the play on the court do the talking. Of course, he took up to the Pat McAfee show the other day and basically just shredded Stephen A. Smith and Brian Windhorst for whatever reason to fulfill his garbage, low character narrative because that's who LeBron James is. Now, of course, Stephen A. Smith is not in the clear either with a couple of the false accusations of accusing LeBron James of not being at the Kobe Bryant Memorial, which that was debunked in a minute. And like LeBron James, a low IQ moron who's just a degrading human being who needs to just stick to politics and just disappear from the sports world because everyone in the sports world has just grown tired of the act. I mean, I haven't listened to the guy in many, many years, and I know he's just been a different person, especially when he ran Max Kellerman out of ESPN. And for the sports debate followers who used to watch the sports debate shows, you know the story with that one, because Stephen A. Smith just likes to carry himself as an ego hound of a moronic idiot. But he and LeBron James deserve each other. Spare me the beef they have. Of course, the worst part of this was that LeBron James tried to come out and disrespect the athletes of the past and try to make this retarded comment to where he said Giannis Antetokounmpo would score 250 points in an NBA game in the 70s. Now, mind you, Wilt Chamberlain is turning in his grave, given how hard he went through to score that 100-point game way back when. I think it was like 1962. Both of them just come across as a bit moronic. Both of them come across as narcissists, obviously cowards, and that's who they are. And they can have all the beef they want. Excuse me. They can say anything they want, and they can do whatever they did a couple of weeks ago after that LA game where I guess LeBron took exception to something Stephen A. Smith said about LeBron's son, Bronny James. But that's who those two are. We know how sensitive they are to any kind of pushback and any kind of criticism. They deserve each other, and they can just put themselves in one of those pine boxes, drift away along the river, and cease to exist because the sport of basketball will be better without both of them, honestly. Not just one of them, both of them. Because they're both they're both the two biggest clowns in the NBA right now, bar none. Period. Sometimes stuff like that I don't like talking about because I've always said if you have a problem with what someone says, take it upon yourself and deliver it with action, not by word of mouth. Seemed like LeBron James was to do whatever by word of mouth versus action, and it's playing right in Stephen A. Smith's hands because he wants to fulfill a narrative, and LeBron James is giving him that narrative. Where back in the day, if you did something like that to someone like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or a Tim Duncan, or even go back to guys like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, they'll let the performance on the court do the talking, and they don't care about what anybody in the media says. It's basically what we've come down to in today's society when it comes to the athletes and the criticism and the feedback they get, even if it's the smallest of ones and the lightest of feedback that doesn't come across the wrong way. Guys like LeBron James take it the wrong way, and we're having this. Doesn't help Stephen A. Smith as a bona fide clown himself. But those two deserve each other. Put them two in a pie box, ship them away, and let's just do away with them once and for all. Now, speaking of beef, I'm going to jump to the NFL and the ongoing beef that is still ongoing between Asante Samuel and Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders comes on to Skip Bayless's podcast, and Skip brings it up to Deion about the beef that Asante Samuel has with him. And Deion Sanders basically said to the equivalent of, you're trying to compare yourself to a god, which he labels himself as the god of NFL cornerbacks. And of course, per usual, Asante Samuel wants to have this crazy reaction. Spin back of what started all of this was that out of nowhere, Asante Samuel felt the need to screenshot stat sheets of him versus Deion Sanders in their careers and talk about how he got to the 50 interception mark faster than Deion Sanders did. Per usual, like everybody who likes to stick to these screenshots and these stat sheets, they don't tell the whole story. And per usual, when someone does this, they miss the whole point simply because when Asante Samuel Sr. played in the NFL, it started to become a pass-happy league, and quarterbacks weren't afraid to go at Asante Samuel. Of course, he's going to have more interceptions. Why? Because when Deion Sanders stepped on the field, no quarterback, head coach, or offensive coordinator would scheme plays to go anywhere near Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders was just great at taking away half that field. Because you throw a ball anywhere near Deion Sanders, given the ball hawk he is, an interception or a potential pick six is headed your way. Ask what happened to the Atlanta Falcons in that game in 1994 when they played San Francisco, when Chris Chandler tried to throw to Andre Rison, perfectly picked off by Deion Sanders, and he took it to the house. That's Deion Sanders. Asante Samuel can flock out all of the stats he wants to, talk all the garbage he wants to, go on to any show he wants to, and he still can't hold a candlelight to Deion Sanders at Deion Sanders' worst day. Because Deion Sanders didn't need the stat sheet to show the world how great he was. If he stood on the field, you weren't even going anywhere near him. You weren't running near him. You weren't throwing passes near him because he was excellent at taking away half the field. Actually, I looked at the all-time great cornerbacks in NFL history. I'm on the top 20 to 25. I don't even see Asante Samuel on it. And who do I see number one across the board on many of these sites and platforms by respected NFL pundits? None other than Deion Sanders, because you didn't need a stat sheet to describe Deion Sanders' play. If you saw Deion Sanders play, or if you can watch him on the YouTube videos, you don't need a stat sheet to describe it. Deion Sanders knew how to take away the field, take away your top weapon, and basically he made that kind of an impact. He didn't need the stat sheets. He didn't need to make the tackles. He didn't need to make all the interceptions. Now, let me remind you, also at a time when the NFL was more balanced run-pass versus what Asante Samuel Sr. played, when it started to become more pass-happy and more pass-efficient. But if Deion Sanders really wants to go there, he can basically pull up the 2007 Super Bowl 42 between the New England Patriots and the New York Giants, where as the Patriots were driving for perfection, Eli Manning overthrows David Tyree on a 2nd and 5 right to Asante Samuel's hands. and Samuel drops the interception, which more than likely would have iced it. The interception that should have iced it turned out to be the biggest backfire in Super Bowl history, because everybody knows what happened on the next play. 3rd and 5. You take Eli Manning out of the snap. He looks like he's going to be wrapped up, spins around, throws the long heave to David Tyree at the top of the head, and Tyree catches the pass for the long first down. Of course, 3 plays later, Manning to Plexico Burress, which turned out to be the game-winning touchdown that sealed the shocker in Super Bowl 42 that stopped the New England Patriots' run to perfection. But that Asante Samuel drop had more impact than you think, because we're not talking about the pass of David Tyree or the shocking upset that the Giants pulled in Super Bowl 42 if Asante Samuel makes a play like he should have. That's Asante Samuel's legacy. He can have all the stats he wants. He can have all the interceptions he wants. Just because he got to the 50 interception mark faster than Deion Sanders or basically any cornerback for that matter doesn't mean he's in that conversation. I don't know who peed in Asante Samuel Sr.'s Cheerios for him to start acting like this, but whatever it is, he needs to snap out of it, because he started going after Shannon Sharpe and Chad Johnson from the night series Nightcap, which can be seen on YouTube. But nobody is going to mention Asante Samuel in the same plethora as Deion Sanders, no matter how hard he tries, no matter the stat sheets he puts up, no matter all the video crop footage he wants to put up. Because Deion Sanders was just a man amongst boys. And Asante Samuel, the reason why he got more interceptions was simply because it became a pass-happy NFL, and teams are now starting to become more pass-first versus the run-pass balance that we used to see during the Deion Sanders years. Massive difference. But if it was more pass-happy then, I'm sure Deion Sanders would have got way more interceptions. Why? Because he knew how to see the ball. He knew how to scout the ball. He knew how to pick off the passes. But the biggest thing that made Deion Sanders successful was just he could just stand on the field, do nothing, and still take away half of it, because quarterbacks, offensive linemen, and head coaches have to scheme differently and basically call plays differently to stay away from Deion Sanders. That was an impact Deion Sanders had. Many other cornerbacks certainly in that conversation. You talk about Rod Woodson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You talk about, of course, Darrelle Revis of the New York Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's why they called it Revis Island for quite some time. Darrell Green of the Washington Redskins was a great one. Actually, now the Washington Commanders. My apologies for that. I'll go way back to the Steel Curtain years. A fellow named Mel Blount, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course, many others. But for Asante Samuel to think he's in that conversation, despite all the evidence that says he doesn't, he needs to have his head examined. And it's time for him to just chill the talk about Deion Sanders and just move on with life, because nothing's going to change for every time you open your mouth. You're not even the same category as Aqeel Talib. I mean, one rating had him lower than Aqeel Talib. Aqeel Talib, the standout cornerback for the Denver Broncos, known for beating up Michael Crabtree of the Raiders and just ripping off a necklace during the middle of a fight during a Broncos-Raiders game. But Asante Samuel wasn't even in Aqeel Talib's league. That's saying a whole lot. I don't know what's up with some of these old guys who think stat sheets is going to tell the story and defend them. Let the play dictate itself. Simply because if you don't let the play dictate itself, it says a lot about you at the end of the day. If you want to go ahead and try and sell yourself to something you're not, it's going to backfire and backfire bad. And that's what it's doing to Asante Samuel, because right now he's getting roasted all over the place, and rightfully so. I mean, nobody at the cornerback position could come remotely close to Deion Sanders. Maybe Darrelle Revis during his time with New York, maybe, and a couple of others, Rod Woodson of the Steelers, but that's about it. And speaking of more NFL news, actually, we're going to go over to Baltimore, because this has Ravens Nation all set off in fireworks. It was the extension of John Harbaugh for 3 more years. You know, I guess they were calling for Harbaugh's head after disappointing losses to Buffalo and Kansas City the last 2 years in the playoffs back-to-back, understandably so. But I've always said, well, if you want to fire a coach, have at it. But who are you going to replace him with? Maybe you could argue you could have replaced him with Mike McDonald before he went to Seattle because he was a fixture with that defense in Baltimore the year before he left because that defense was among the best in the league. If I'm correct, I think they were number one in some categories. But Harbaugh is a solid coach. I mean, there's some better than him, but there's some that would probably take Harbaugh over theirs. I get it. The playoff success after they won the Super Bowl against San Francisco has been about 500 at best, and that might be pushing it. And he's had a lot of talented rosters. It's basically just, took a dump on the bed in the playoffs when it matters. But you're not going to find a better fit in Baltimore than John Harbaugh. I get why Ravens Nation just wants to set off fireworks the way they did. Some love it, some don't love it, and it's sort of divided Ravens Nation for the most part. But I'll personally acknowledge this for Ravens Nation. I get where you're coming from, and I do agree on one thing. You might want to start holding this guy accountable because you've had some talented rosters. Now it's time to finish the job for once with what you have right now because you have a team good enough to get back to at least a conference championship. I mean, you could argue you should have gone there last year had Mark Andrews not, fumbled the ball all over the place. And you're good enough to get the job done. Everyone's going to point the blame on Lamar Jackson, understandably so. But it's more a synopsis of what John Harbaugh has been since he won the Super Bowl way back in 2012 when he was with Baltimore against San Francisco in the Harbaugh Bowl. But I get it. I understand it. Not a bad contract extension when you consider that the coaching field is not the greatest right now. I mean, I know you guys want to try and do better. Maybe you should have done something with Mike McDonald when you had him. Make him a top 5 assistant. Maybe make that seat on Harbaugh's warmer. But I think a guy that has gotten a pass a little bit over in Baltimore might be General Manager Eric DeCosta, simply because he put that roster together, and now he's got the team together with the extension to Harbaugh, and now they're talking about an extension to Lamar Jackson. Think now for DeCosta, he now has to put the roster together and assemble it to where now you got to finish the job. I mean, the way I look at it, I think Harbaugh was headed into a lame duck year before he signed this contract. So it's basically 4 years to get the job done once. And basically, with the AFC maybe sort of plateauing a little bit, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is still the gold standard of the Kansas City Chiefs. But when it comes to guys like Lamar Jackson in Baltimore and now Josh Allen in Buffalo and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, get the job done or be bound for disappointment. And you better get it done soon. And basically a bunch of other quarterbacks also, the exceptions being Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts because they got the job done. But there's some quarterbacks now and some teams that led by those quarterbacks that better get the job done. I think Harbaugh is capable of doing it because he did it once before. I understand the frustrations in Baltimore simply because there are times where Harbaugh on the sidelines tends to venture in his own world. Actually, this look after Tennessee went to Baltimore in the divisional round of 2019 and just curb stomped him when the wheels fell off. The look on his face said it all. I get it. I try to be respectful to my division rivals, being a fan of Cincinnati teams, and I try to understand every view of it. But for Baltimore, I get it. You want to put the pressure on Harbaugh? I understand it. I get why everyone feels that way in Baltimore, but just like we have here in Cincinnati and just like they have in Buffalo, I'll just acknowledge this. You guys are in do or die mode. Allen, Burrow, Jackson, you guys got to get it done because if you don't get it done within the next couple years, it's going to be never. Plain and simple. And of course, in Baltimore, they're talking about extending Lamar Jackson and make him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, which I don't have a problem with. He's basically played up to that level. Now you want to knock the postseason record, that's fine. But the difference is he's made the postseason, unlike a boatload of these quarterbacks. So he's doing at least something right. And he's basically led the Ravens to back-to-back division titles since he came back from the injuries in 21 and 22 to lead Baltimore to division titles in 23 and 24. Probably going to be the favorites to win it in 25, the AFC North. So, I mean, he's a standout talent. I get the playoff failures that he's had, but it's more of an indictment on the Ravens franchise more than just Lamar Jackson. but it is what it is at this point. I expect that to be done because I remember the hoopla when he was a free agent or going to be a free agent. Everyone was wondering what was going to happen with Lamar Jackson. Now that they kept him, I think they're entitled to find a ways to keep him around to basically that he's a Raven for life. And I don't expect him to wear another uniform outside of a Baltimore Raven one for quite some time. He's just a fixture over there in Baltimore. Like, what more can you say? That concludes the NFL segment. Now we segue into a boatload of topics in the boxing world. Actually, let me trace back for a minute. Shout out to FC Cincinnati Saturday night with an impressive road win over Nashville FC. It was Evander with the free kick goal in the 44th minute to end the first half, and a penalty kick by Kevin Denke at the extra minutes to win it. But the story here was Roman Celentano just making save after save after save after save, and like a span of like 5 minutes. I mean, he saved the penalty kick from the Nashville kicker, and then like later on, he made 3 saves on basically like the equivalent of like 3 hard strike kicks, and basically just saved that game for FC Cincinnati to salvage a win on the road in Nashville. So shout out to FC Cincinnati. The player of the game obviously is Roman Celentano, who basically just put the team on his back, faced everything that Nashville SC threw at him, and he basically handled it. Job well done, FC Cincinnati. Now to the world of boxing. Oh boy, I got a lot to talk about with this next topic. Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford. You're really quickly becoming an enemy, aren't you? Well, let me just back up here for a second. Let me just say one thing you said right. You're right about what you said about Errol Spence Jr. About if he's right now, he's not a Hall of Famer. You're right. Let me remind people about this real quick before I proceed with what's wrong with Terence Crawford. The Errol Spence Jr. fan base is the biggest bunch of useless clowns walking God's green earth right now because a lot of them live in their mama's basement messing with their phones and think Errol Spence Jr. is the greatest thing boxing ever created, which is the definition of a I'm trying to think the word here, brazen lie. It's a brazen lie by Errol Spence Jr. fans. They're all just despicable. They're all just cowardly. They're all just moronic. They're all just a waste of human flesh. Reminds me of Mike Tyson fans of the 80s. Reminds me of what I deal with Bengals fans in Cincinnati. Errol Spence Jr. fans are right behind them. Terence Crawford is right about Errol Spence Jr. And then remind you guys want to talk about the accident and the detached retina? Before all that happened, Terence Crawford pulled up on Errol Spence Jr. and basically said, let's get it on. Errol Spence Jr. never wanted to smoke until what happened in 2023 when Terence Crawford did everything but kill the guy, which broke the worst fan base in boxing at the time, Errol Spence Jr. fans. Now back to Terence Crawford. He's right about Errol Spence Jr. I mean, doesn't have necessarily the Hall of Fame worthy credentials because after Terence Crawford just beat the brakes off of him, he tucked his tail between his legs and ran backward like a chicken crap that he is. So I'm trying to alleviate the use of vulgar language. But Terence Crawford maybe crossed a bit of a line on this next part where he talked about the not putting Manny Pacquiao because of the dark cloud of steroids on his head. Did I remind you that Manny Pacquiao filed a defamation suit on Floyd Mayweather for something like this, and basically the whole thing and just threw an egg in Floyd's face, and the whole thing just went to poof smoke? That part I don't necessarily agree with. I have a chance to listen to the rest of this interview he did. He's right about Errol Spence Jr. because Errol Spence Jr. hasn't done anything of significance, but it does not help his cause what he had to say about Manny Pacquiao. And then I remind you, he's now saying if he beats Canelo Alvarez, he's in the top 3 all time. I don't know what the guy's smoking, but if he thinks beating Canelo Alvarez puts him in the top 3 all time, this guy needs to be seriously checked for CTE at that point. Well, let me get this part out of the way. He's not beating Canelo Alvarez because Canelo Alvarez is too damn big for him. I mean, if he beats him, have at it. But Terence Crawford, who made a lot of fans after he did the world a favor by just dismantling, destroying, and beat down a used up clown, an Errol Spence Jr., and a used up clown fan base known as Errol Spence Jr. fans. I think he's trying to do everything he can to just diminish it, because now he's talking about Manny Pacquiao and the whole drugs and whatever shebang that says it's dark cloud on his head. Those that don't remember, it was the same thing when Mayweather accused Manny Pacquiao of. It was just trying to be egg in their face, because they did take the test as they said, and basically Manny Pacquiao basically passed it. Of course, it led to a defamation suit, which is one of the reasons why the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight stalled out. But Terence Crawford wants to acknowledge that, saying Manny Pacquiao is not a pound-for-pound all-time great. I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, but when you talked about saying that has the issue of drugs over his head, nobody knows the truth about that one, because the one time they tested him, he passed it. So he's really quickly making enemies out of people. And the fact he's only fought 3 times in the last 3 years and is now headed for a massive money showdown with Canelo Alvarez, good luck. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, I hope he can find a way to beat Canelo Alvarez, because I've always been a Terence Crawford fan. But if you want to turn me away as a fan, keep talking the way you've been talking. Because you're talking about throwing yourself in the same category as Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson if you beat Canelo Alvarez. You're not even going to get remotely close to the top 20, even if you do pull it off. Because simply put, you haven't done anything of significance. You won the undisputed titles, fine. You're going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, yes. You are an all-time great of the modern times, yes. But to throw yourself in the same category as Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson, you need to have your head seriously examined. Hopefully Canelo Alvarez don't beat you up so bad to where your head is totally messed up, because you're in for it coming up in September. I'll make my prediction on the fight when the time comes. Another one is another wild situation. This involves David Benavidez, another coward in the boxing community. First, he has these false accusations of ducking Canelo Alvarez, when everybody knows he is the one ducking Canelo Alvarez. Try to accuse the vice versa. Now he wants a 60-40 split for a fight against Dmitri Bivol, where it was ordered that Bivol has to face him because he's the mandatory challenger. When was the last time David Benavidez was a cash cow in the sport of boxing? Was he ever? Didn't even think so. Who the hell is he to come out here and demand a 60-40 split? Apparently, the purse bid has it at 75-25 in favor of Bivol. Supposed to go to a purse bid a week from tomorrow. We'll find out when that comes. But David Benavidez has no room to pull any power with anybody, especially the premier light heavyweight in the sport in Dmitri Bivol, simply because Bivol controls all the cards. I don't know what's going on here, but I said him and his pal Samson need to have a little get together and just cease to exist from society themselves if they want to conduct themselves this way. They did the same thing when it comes to Canelo Alvarez. And then I remind you, Canelo Alvarez invited David Benavidez into the ring. David Benavidez ducked it and ran like a coward. Of course, he flew to the rematch between Dmitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev that took place in Saudi Arabia. He was there basically for a cameo and flew back like a coward. That's what David Benavidez is. So he thinks he's an A-side. He wants A-side type money against the premier light heavyweight in the world, who's basically undisputed right now, who basically got revenge from the loss he had to Beterbiev months before. I mean, I know the guy flunked a drug test, but I think the guy's still on the drugs to think something like this, because the guy basically can't even make a dime in his own backyard in front of 10 people. That's how David Benavidez is. And his delusional fan base, who have the IQ level of sock puppets, who had their heads crushed by sledgehammers, think he's worth it when he's really not. They're talking about him fighting Callum Smith, but that doesn't do him any good, because now he's in do or die mode, step up or step out mode. Step up and fight Dmitri Bivol. Let's see what kind of a man you are, and do it under fair terms, because you want things your way doesn't mean you're going to get it. That's the problem with David Benavidez, one of the premier cowards pound for pound right now. He wants things his way. He has false accusations of people ducking when everything else says otherwise. But we'll find out, because I expect something to come out of this here soon. But as some people said, and I agree with, I'd be surprised if this fight takes place, because the excuses have begun from David Benavidez once again. It happened with Canelo Alvarez. It happened when he lost his title on the scales. It happened when he flunked a drug test. It happened when he resorted to snorting cocaine. And now we're having this conversation about David the Coward Benavidez when it comes to Dmitri Bivol. I'm not expecting this fight to happen. The excuses started a while back, and they're ongoing. Demanding a 60-40 split where you're not even worth 90, not even worth 10% of the 100, speaks volumes of who David Benavidez is. Dmitri Bivol can do better than him anyways. And speaking of people who think they're worth than what they are, it's the return of Deontay Wilder in Kansas. I said all along, when he got exposed by Tyson Fury, that was his end game. He didn't get exposed once. He got exposed twice. He got exposed 3 times. We know the story there. And of course, after that, he just got his, handed to him by both Zalil Zhang and Joseph Parker. Now he's going to Kansas to fight an individual. I can't think of his name at the moment. But he still thinks he wants to get a fight with Anthony Joshua. Basically, a fight that's now almost like the equivalent of 4 years after its expiration date, but still should have some buzz given the names of Wilder and Joshua. But Deontay Wilder, this is what he resorted to. I wish him nothing but the best, because his 5 minutes of fame were up when the second fight against Tyson Fury happened, and he basically got beaten down and bum rushed to where he's basically useless right now. And he still thinks he can ascend to the hardest puncher in heavyweight boxing history, which he isn't. Because when he floored Tyson Fury 4 times in their 3 fights, Fury got up all 4 times as if nothing happened. The first time it was a draw. Anybody knows Fury won the first fight. The second fight, nothing really happened for Wilder because Fury beat him from start to finish. Of course, Wilder floors Fury twice in the third fight, only to have Fury got up and beat him down the next 7 rounds. Deontay Wilder is doing everything he can to stay relevant simply because he has no other choice. And if he thinks this is the way to go, have at it. It'd be the funniest thing if he loses this particular fight, because I would not be surprised if it happened. Once you get fully exposed the way he was in the 3-fight series with Fury, forget it. Everybody's seen it. Everyone's going to take note. And he's going to be coming still in this particular way. Why? This is who Deontay Wilder is right now. Because without the punch, he's nothing. Fury exposed that 3 times. I think everybody knows the secret now. Party's over. Good luck. Some of these heavyweights at the modern times are just some pieces of work, I'm telling you. And Deontay Wilder is an example of it. Well, speaking of real heavyweights, it was over 50 plus years ago today in San Diego, where it was the first of the 3-fight series between Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton. These stand out Norton, the enormous physique, versus Muhammad Ali, who's trying to, on a quest to regain the championship, had just lost to Joe Frazier just somewhat before. This particular fight was a good clash both ways. Real story here was the strength and power of Ken Norton breaking the jaw of Muhammad Ali to where Norton would get the decision win. The only win in this 3-fight series, but maybe not the stature that Ali Frazier had in that trilogy, because that is the gold standard at a high level. But the Muhammad Ali Ken Norton trilogy was very, very darn good. I mean, you could argue 3 fights. All 3 fights could have gone either way. I thought Norton was a correct winner of the first fight. Thought Ali won the second. Some could argue Norton won the third, even though Ali was the official winner. I've seen it myself. I thought it could have gone either way. I understand how people thought Ken Norton should have been rewarded the decision, but maybe not the stature of what Ali and Frazier did, because that was just gladiator level. But Ken Norton always was a tough out for anybody in the 70s, especially Muhammad Ali in this 3-fight series. Got some wins later in his career, especially one against Jerry Quarry. Maybe his biggest misfortune in the 70s was he ran into the 2 hardest punchers of that era, George Foreman and Ernie Shavers, both who just basically wasted Norton. But maybe he got a little solace in a terrific fight in 1978 against Larry Holmes. It was a back-and-forth fight, and basically whoever won the 15th round won the fight and the judges' scorecards. Of course, it was given to Holmes. Some thought Norton should have got it. But maybe Ken Norton got somewhat of a redemption for giving it all against the great Larry Holmes, because he was a standout fighter himself, mixed into all the great heavyweights of the 70s, and he certainly was up there with them. I mean, there's a boxing video, if you guys want to watch it, called Champions Forever. It involves Ali, Frazier, Foreman, Norton, and Holmes, the top 5 heavyweights of the 70s, and they all talk about their runs and careers and the respect they pay to others. Of course, they all paid the ultimate respect to Muhammad Ali, who's still the greatest. But it was 50 plus years ago today in San Diego. Ken Norton got the first of the 3 fights with Muhammad Ali and got the only win of that trilogy. A very, very good trilogy, very, very sound trilogy. Ken Norton was a tough out for anyone. Those who saw the fight and saw Ken Norton fight will tell you that exact same thing, because he was amazing. Maybe one of the few fighters who had the actual body physique and the boxing ability to go with it, because you don't talk boxing physiques and boxing ability with fighters that chiseled as Ken Norton was. He was certainly a sculpted figure. The images are out there. I highly recommend to do some research on him. Of course, athletes was in his background. His son, Ken Norton Jr., standout linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL. So the bloodlines were there. And speaking of top athletes in the 70s, it was the emergence of Sugar Ray Leonard on this day 45 years ago, where he pasted Davey Boy Green with the left hook that knocked Green out cold. And basically, David Boy Green is still seeing stars. I bring this one up simply because a lot of people get misconstrued of what Sugar Ray Leonard was. This fight showed just how nasty and how mean Sugar Ray Leonard could be if pushed the right way. Davey Boy Green tried to push those buttons. The picture-perfect left hook right on Davey Boy Green's chin. Davey Boy Green is down and out. That's all she wrote. And Sugar Ray Leonard retains the championship in his hometown of Landover, Maryland. Of course, this was the last fight before the giant super fight of 1980 between Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, the first of their 3 fights that took place in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, which Duran won, but we know Leonard got the title back on a no mas. But it was before that Sugar Ray Leonard pasted Davey Boy Green to get that fight, because that's the fight everybody wanted to see. Roberto Duran was a fighter of the 70s. Leonard came on the back end of the 70s. It was billed at that point to be the fighter of the 80s. And for him to get to that point, he needed the fight with Roberto Duran, which happened twice in a span of 5 months in 1980. The first fight, of course, in Montreal, where Duran got the decision, but Leonard pocketed $10 million. And, of course, the rematch was the famous no mas, where Sugar Ray Leonard just taunted Roberto Duran to where Roberto Duran simply said, "I quit." But Sugar Ray Leonard, people think that he was just this flamboyant, flashy stylist who utilized the ring and showboated to the crowd. Yeah, he was that. But deep down, as he showed when he pasted Davey Boy Green on the canvas, he was one mean, nasty MFer. He really was. He wanted to get down and nasty. He could do it. Ask Tommy Hearns about that fight, September 16, 1981, what Leonard did to him. Leonard was as nasty as it got. Boy, I wish we could find another Sugar Ray Leonard somewhere. And I conclude with another heavyweight fight. This fight is the epitome of what heavyweight boxing is. They say one punch in the heavyweight division could turn a fight around. And boy, this one did. This took place in Tennessee between Big John Tate and Mike Weaver. John Tate was the undefeated 1976 gold medalist. 1976 Olympic bronze medalist in the heavyweight division, facing the veteran Mike Weaver. This was supposed to be a showcase for Big John Tate. It looked like it for a while because he was doing anything and everything he wanted to do to Mike Weaver for the first 14 rounds and about the first 2 minutes, 30 seconds of the 15th round. Looked like he had the fight won. But with 30 seconds left in the heavyweight division, 30 seconds left is a lot of time, and it certainly was for Mike Weaver, because that left hook that put John Tate face first on the canvas in Tennessee changed everything forever. John Tate was down, out, gone. Just one left hook, and everything changed. Mike Weaver walks out with the heavyweight championship of the world. John Tate never gets back to that level ever again. And Tate was a solid heavyweight with a deep amateur background himself, 76 bronze medalist, as I said. Had this fight won, basically had this fight won. Two of the judges had him up by at least 5 points. Third judge, I can't remember what the third one had, but he was ahead in this fight and had it under control. Made one mistake, got caught, and that was all she wrote. That was the heavyweight division in a nutshell. And Mike Weaver showed it when he pasted John Tate face first onto the canvas. That's why you don't stop fighting until the final bell ends. John Tate stopped. Mike Weaver capitalized. Party is over. Turn off the lights. We have a new heavyweight champion of the world. Of course, that spun off to a crazy career for Mike Weaver. Had a bunch of solid fights. Gave Larry Holmes the toughest fight of his career in the earlier 80s till Holmes stopped him. Fought guys like Michael Dokes, Carl the Truth Williams. Of course, his career ended in 1991 when he was knocked out by Lennox Lewis. They nicknamed him Hercules for that reason. Mike Weaver was always a tough out for anyone. Not necessarily the greatest chin in the world, but certainly could crack. And if he could hit you on the right spot like he did to John Tate, forget it. Party's over. Night, night. That's what happened That's what happened to John Tate when he fought Mike Weaver 45 years ago today in Tennessee. He had the fight won. That's why in the heavyweight division, one punch can change everything. This fight was a perfect example of it. Perfectly placed punch on the perfectly placed chin. Down went John Tate, face first. Fight's over. Heavyweight division in a nutshell. Had a lot of great one-punch knockouts in heavyweight history, obviously. I could go on and on with a lot of them. But maybe the impact and the epitome of what a one-punch knockout in the heavyweight division was when Mike Weaver, just out of nowhere, stopped John Tate, put him down, out. And he's basically out cold for the longest time after the fight. He was just pasted face first, John Tate was. And which is weird because he had the fight basically won. He did anything and everything he wanted to, got careless, got caught. See you later. That's why you take care of business every minute of every round and every fight, because apparently John Tate was staring a unification fight with Larry Holmes in the heavyweight division. Never materialized because he never got back to that level ever again. And John Tate was basically it at that point. Mike Weaver got the opportunities Tate never got. That's why you have to take care of business. And if you don't, you lose out on a lot, especially when we talk about the financial aspect in the area of millions. I can point to a lot of examples, but this one was probably the epitome of what the heavyweight division is. They say one punch in the heavyweight division can turn it in a second because you talk about men over 200 plus pounds. Mike Weaver showed it. I can go on and on about this particular fight, but, still nothing beats Mike Weaver pacing John Tate after just being relentlessly behind, because it was amazing what John Tate was doing to him. You just have to focus every minute of every round, every minute and second, because if you don't, this happens. Of course, the more modern one, and not in the heavyweight division, was how Mildred Taylor blew it against Julio Cesar Chavez. And of course, controversy aside for a second, I'm not talking about the controversy. Taylor had the fight won. The right hands by Chavez, down went Taylor. That's why you take care of business in every minute of every round. And there's no such thing as a tune-up. There's no such thing as a gimme. There's no such thing as a cherry pick. There's no such thing as all of this other stuff, record padding or whatever you guys want to call it, because you guys are sitting on the couch and are not in the ring. Plain and simple. Mike Weaver could tell you that. As you know what happens when a couch potato tries to confront a boxer, YouTube, what that moron did about a decade and a half ago, when he tried to meet Rocky Lockridge in the streets. Lockridge hits him with the right hand. The guy's sleeping. That's why you guys are here, and the fighters are in the ring. There's no such thing as an easy fight. There's no such thing as a gimme, because if you can't take care of business like you should, those gimmies basically are out the window. Plain and simple. Boy, I wish we could go back to the days of the heavyweight division when there was more heavyweights to talk about. The division's the equivalent of expired milk past its expiration date, trying to buy it at a store about 4 months past it. It's not going to be too good. And that's where we're at right now. And that will wrap up this edition of Sir Hunt on X. I will be back tomorrow night. And as always, my favorite thing to do, make self-care your number one priority. Take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. And as I wrap this up, big shout out to Tevin Farmer, the boxer who recently announced he's battling Tourette syndrome and it's not going to impact him. Kudos to Tevin Farmer. We all love you. You gave William Zepeda all you can handle because William Zepeda didn't have the balls to leave Mexico. That's why he didn't get the decisions. All because William Zepeda has no balls. Kudos to Tevin Farmer for telling the whole world and revealing that he's battling Tourette syndrome. The boxing world has come together for such a terrific man. Just because William Zepeda didn't have the balls to fight in the States, that's how Tevin Farmer lost both fights to William Zepeda. And that'll wrap it up. And I hope everyone has themselves a wonderful rest of the day. Make self-care your number one priority in life. Take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. Until then, have a good night. Take care of yourselves. God bless. See you tomorrow.